Hey everybody, Will here with Saberune Design Tutorial blog, welcoming you to another Photoshop CS6 extended tutorial. In today's tutorial we are going to revisit one of the first tutorials I published way back when we were still using Photoshop CS 5.5. In that tutorial I showed you how to create a 3D keyboard icon using the Repoussé panel in CS5. As you probably already know, the Repoussé panel no longer exists in CS6. Instead, the 3D functions have been nicely merged with the main interface. By viewer request, we're going to update that tutorial to be CS6 compliant. Before we go any further, this tutorial assumes you're on a PC and makes use of the keyboard shortcut modifiers Shift, Control, and Alt. If you're using a Mac, remember to substitute for Shift, Command, and Option, respectively. This tutorial also assumes that you have previously installed the materials extension. If you haven't done so, please follow the link in the video description to learn how to install those. Now that we have that out of the way, let's get started. If you haven't already, go ahead and open Photoshop. Once that's done, in the main menu, left-click File and New. Set your image size to 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels, set the resolution to 72 pixels per inch, and set the color mode to RGB color and 8-bit. Set the background contents to transparent and click OK. Next, let's set up the interface to be a little more 3D friendly. In the main menu, click Window 3D to open the 3D panel. Then click Window Properties to open the Property panel. Dock the Properties panel by grabbing the top of the panel and dragging it to the bottom of the 3D panel until the blue line appears, then drop it. Then drag the newly created panel to the side of the Layers panel until the blue line appears, then drop it to dock it here. We will be making heavy use of both of these panels. It's very helpful to have them both visible at all times when working in 3D. Next, press Ctrl R to toggle the rulers to visible. Double-click the ruler to bring up the Preferences panel. Click Guides, Grids, and Slices. Change the field next to Grid Line Every to 250 and Pixels, then click OK. Press Ctrl' on your keyboard to toggle the grid lines to visible. On the toolbar, click and hold the Shapes tool until the flyout appears. Without releasing click, hover over the rounded rectangle tool. Release your click to select it. In the Options bar, click the small box labeled Fill to open the Fill panel. Set the fill to solid color by clicking here. Set the color to black by clicking the black swatch. Click the small box labeled Stroke to open the Stroke panel. Set the stroke to null by clicking the No Color box here. Move over to the right side of the Options bar and in the field labeled Radius, set the amount to 40 and press Enter to commit the change. Next, left-click with your cursor located on this intersection of the grid. While holding click, drag your cursor down and to the right to this intersection. Hold the Shift key as you drag to help maintain symmetry. Release your click to set the box. We don't need the grid anymore, so go ahead and dismiss that by pressing Ctrl'. Next, go to the main menu and expand the 3D menu. Select New 3D Extrusion from selected path. In the 3D panel, click the current view layer to activate it. In the Properties panel, click the field labeled View to expand the menu. From the menu, choose Top. Click the cube-shaped icon labeled Perspective. In the field next to FOV, set a value of 67 and hit Enter to commit the change. At the top of the Properties panel, click the Coordinates icon. In the left column, in the field labeled Y, change the value to 2400 and press Enter. Back in the 3D panel, click the rounded rectangle 1 layer to activate it. In the Coordinates pane of the Properties panel, find the field in the center column labeled X. Change that value to 90 degrees and press Enter. At the top of the Properties panel, click the Deform icon. In the field labeled Extrusion Depth, enter a value of 200 and press Enter. In the field labeled Taper, enter a value of 145 degrees and press Enter. Just below that, click the bullet labeled Shear. In the field labeled Horizontal Angle X, set a value of 13 degrees and press Enter. In the field labeled Vertical Angle Y, enter a value of minus 16 degrees and press Enter. Now go back up to the top of the Properties panel and click the Cap icon. In the Bevel pane, change the value in the Width field to 5%. In the area labeled Contour, click the little down pointing arrow to bring up the contour picker and select Half Round. In the Inflate panel, change the value in the field labeled angle to -10 and press enter. In the strength field, insert a value of 8 and press enter. Go back up to the 3D panel and expand the submenu by clicking this icon in the upper right corner. Click on Snap Object to Ground Plane. Next, click the layer named Round Rectangle 1 Front Inflation Material to activate it. While holding down the Shift key, click the layer named Round Rectangle 1 Back Inflation Material. All 5 material layers should now be selected. While the 5 material layers are selected, go back down to the Properties panel and towards the top right corner, find the field containing the colored sphere. Click the down-facing arrow next to the sphere to open the Materials Picker. In the Materials Picker, click the gear-shaped icon at the upper right to expand the submenu. From that menu, select Plastic. A notification box will appear asking if you want to replace your current materials with the new selection. Select OK to replace them or choose Append to add the new materials to the picker without overriding the existing ones. Another notification may appear. If you have unsaved materials active, choose Yes to save them, otherwise choose No to proceed. In the Material Picker, double-click on the material labeled Plastic Textured Black to apply the material to the object. Next, while still in the Properties panel, click on the black colored field labeled Diffuse to open the Color Picker. At the bottom of the Color Picker panel, in the field next to the pound sign, enter a value of 383838 and click OK. Now click the dark colored field labeled Specular to open the Color Picker again. This time, enter a value of 282828 in the field next to the pound sign and click OK. Back up in the 3D panel, click the layer named Rounded Rectangle 1 Front Inflation Material so that only it is highlighted. Back down to the Properties panel, find the field labeled Diffuse. This time, click the folder-shaped icon to expand the submenu. Choose New Texture. Verify that the width and height fields are both set to 1000 pixels and click OK. Click the folder-shaped icon again. You'll notice that the choices are a little different this time. From this submenu, choose Edit Texture. A new document will open. In the main menu, click the 3D menu to expand it. Hover over the option marked Create 3D Overlay until the submenu expands. From the submenu, choose Wireframe. In the toolbar, click and hold on the Type tool until the submenu expands. Without releasing click, hover over the horizontal Type tool to select it, and release your click. In the Options bar, click the Font Family menu to expand it and choose Arial. In the Font Size field, insert a value of 500 and press Enter. Click the Set Text Color field to open the Color Picker. In the field next to the pound sign, enter a value of FFF, which is pure white, and click OK. Click on the canvas to activate the cursor, and while holding down the Shift key, press the P key. Click the check mark on the Options menu to commit the change. In the toolbar, left-click on the Move tool to select it. Click on the P and drag it to the upper left area of the wireframe. At the bottom of the Layers panel, click the FX icon. From the submenu that appears, choose Drop Shadow. The Layer Style panel will open with the Drop Shadow section already active. In the field marked Opacity, set a value of 100. In the Distance field, set a value of 1. In the Size field, set a value of 0. Click OK to commit the changes. In the Layers panel, click the first layer named Layer 1 to activate it. While holding down the Shift key, click the second layer named Layer 1. Both should now be active. Right-click and select Delete Layers. Click the X at the top of the Documents tab to close the Materials document. A notification will appear prompting you to save your work. Click Yes. The P now appears on the 3D shape. Now let's wrap it up by doing a little lighting work. Back in the 3D panel, click on the layer named Infinite Light 1. In the Properties panel, expand the field labeled Preset. Choose Hard Lights. You'll see two new lights have appeared in the 3D panel. Click the layer named Infinite Light 1 to activate it. While holding Shift, click the layer named Infinite Light 3 to activate all three lights. In the toolbar, select the Move tool. In the Options bar, select Drag the 3D object. Click at the bottom center of the keyboard key and drag it to the top center. Release your click. And now it's time for rendering. To begin rendering, look at the bottom of the Properties panel and click the cube-shaped icon. Rendering can take anywhere from a few minutes to several hours, depending on how many and what kind of effects are used, your 3D render settings, and the power of your computer. Photoshop gives you an estimate of the time remaining in the render down at the lower left of the workspace. You can interrupt rendering at any time by clicking the icon again. If no changes are made, rendering can be resumed where it was interrupted. If changes are made, however, the render will have to start over from the beginning. This project is a pretty light load as far as renders go. We don't have any complex reflections or transparency or any of those crazy things that make the render engine sweat, so you can expect your render time to be only a few minutes. Once you're done, you should end up with something that looks a little like this. And that's going to do it for this tutorial, but before we sign off, I want to take a moment to remind our viewers that while most of our tutorials are made in video format, we do occasionally have content that is not. So go ahead and point your browser to www.sabreune.com and subscribe to us by email to ensure that you're always getting our latest content as soon as possible. While you're there, go ahead and take a minute to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Your support is greatly appreciated. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.